Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Patty Framo here. Today is Monday, October the 8th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Your second daily dose of happy for the day, and we hope your Monday's off to a splendid start and that you've been in the vortex, as Abraham says. You've been in that good feeling place all day. If you haven't been, well, we're going to try to help you boost up a little bit there and see if we can give you and all of our listeners that little bit of an edge, right? So that we all have a better day and we also have better opportunities to attract what we want into our lives. So speaking of attractive, hey, Patty, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah, no, things are good.
You know, it's amazing. The weather today here is gorgeous. We've been having some cloudy days here in Encinitas. A lot of cold, not really cold. I mean, it's so sad to say that, under 70 degrees. Mm-hmm. But it's gorgeous today. I'm just loving the sun.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds like gorgeous weather. We're actually coming in on
where you are?
We're coming in on a rather late fall foliage season. It's going to be reaching its peak, I guess, next weekend around here. So, Louise and I are looking forward to, we're going to drive up to Vermont probably to Mount Snow, Vermont, where we have friends. And
I'm jealous. I do miss that again today. That one little part, the little fall foliage.
Oh, yeah, it's only a couple of weeks, but boy, it gets gorgeous. And this year is supposed to be really good. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. It has barely even started where we are. But from all reports, this year is supposed to be a good fall foliage year. So, yeah, it's going to be good. Really,
nice,
really good. Yeah.
Nice.
So
we were talking a little bit about what we might discuss today. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Even though I've talked about this before, or we've talked about it, or I guess everybody's talked about it, about how to manifest. Right. I mean, I feel like you can never really get enough of it because we forget, and those little steps that are so obvious just somehow get muddled when we're not in that high vibration. Yeah.
And that high vibration is it. Louise and I actually were having a conversation about that this afternoon for a number of different reasons, but at the core of it was, we all know that the most important thing is getting into that really good feeling place, or as Abraham calls it, the high vibration or high flying place. And it's amazing how, despite the fact that we know that fact, how difficult it can be to do sometimes, no matter, what you try. And in fact, I was listening to something that Louis shared after the podcast this morning. He shared with me this link that I included actually in the description for this morning's podcast. But it was Abraham talking about the word subconscious and the subconscious mind and how they view that concept. They wanted to kind of set the record straight about what the subconscious mind really is. And it's fascinating. It's an interesting little piece for anybody to listen to. One of the things they mentioned, though, is that when you're trying to get into that into the vortex, so to speak, when you're trying to get into that high-flying, good-feeling place, a really good way to do it, an easier way to do it than most, is to take something, some activity, experience, thought, whatever, that makes you feel good, and then milk it like crazy, which is a good thought, And I actually decided to give that a little bit of an experiment afterward to see what would happen with a particular situation I was dealing with. And I noticed something that I have noticed before, which is, in this case, it was my cat had come in and wanted some attention. So I said, hey, great, petting the cat. That's a good way to get yourself into a good feeling place. So I did. I was petting him. He was loving it. He was having a good time. And then, after 5 minutes of that, he was done, wanted to go eat. And so I got up and I'm trying to maintain in my mind that feeling. I'm trying to milk that feeling. And it's amazing how quickly it faded from my mind. So that's what I was talking with my wife about. Like, we both agree that's a common experience. The experience fades pretty quickly. And it made me, it actually took me to a kind of a related topic, because I don't know if I've told you this before, Patty, but I fall into a category that very recently has been labeled aphantasic, which essentially means I have a lot of trouble creating visual images in my mind, which I always thought was normal. I really didn't know that everybody really could create images. I mean, I heard about visualizing, and I thought they were just, everybody was struggling like I was. When I found out people actually had vivid images in their mind, I was really, really jealous. And so Louise and I were talking about that. We were kind of speculating in a lot of different ways. And of course, she has a psychotherapeutic background, so she always looks at things from that perspective. And she proposed the idea, how we've talked about on all the podcasts, we've talked about how in early stages of our lives, we are effectively trained away from who we naturally are when we're born. Mm-hmm. Well, one aspect of that she suggested is, what if, because I've had all of you guys, every one of you practically has told me that I'm so really good at connecting to energy, and I never really felt like that. And so I commented on that to her. She says, well, what if you always were really, really sensitive to it, but because it wasn't acceptable, you found a way to block it or to deal with it so that it wouldn't get in the way and you'd be considered acceptable to society? And I said, well, how would I know that? And she didn't know, and I didn't know either, but it was an interesting idea. So now now I'm wondering, have I had this self-imposed block up all these years that was preventing me from connecting? And I have been learning recently how to connect, but it's been slow going. I keep wondering, why is it such slow going? Maybe it is something like that. I don't know.
It's interesting you said that about the not being able to visualize, because I think I've got that same thing.
Do you? Oh, okay.
I cannot literally, I can't see images in my mind. Although I got to say, when I'm trying to spell words, I kind of look up in my head and can kind of see them. Uh-huh. But I think for me, it's more about getting into the feeling piece. Me to be able to manifest something, the feeling piece is the part that really matters the most for me, rather than being able to visualize it. So,
well, you need both for sure. Yeah, that is true. So let me ask you, since you have a similar situation, when you try to visualize something, do you get any kind of image at all? Sometimes I get nothing. Sometimes I can create this really dark brownish, very faded image. It's hardly even there. It's more like an imprint than an actual image. And so I can kind of get this really dark scene of a bright scene, if you know what I mean.
I think I just get kind of colors.
Oh, you do?
I don't know. I can't really describe it. I just kind of get some colors, but they're not really describable.
Okay.
I don't know. I hadn't really thought much about it, but you know what? Between this week and next week, I'm going to think about that.
You give it a shot? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Because I've asked some people, and some people apparently have really vivid imagery. And I'm thinking, my God, are you looking at a painting or something? I mean, it's really, really, really clear from the way they describe it.
Too. I totally agree with you. So,
and I did actually have one time very recently, within the past 3 or 4 months, I had one time where I woke up, and just before I woke up, you're kind of in that half dream state as you're getting ready to wake up. I had a really brilliant flash of an image. It wasn't even a scene or anything like that. It was literally a flat blue background with green tennis balls all over it at various distances away and so forth. And it lasted about a half a second, and it was gone. And I said, whoa, what was that? Because it was so vivid. I was not used to anything like that. So I guess it goes to show I can...
I don't know that it's really necessary in my mind to be able to do that in order to really manifest.
I suppose it isn't, because we've all been manifesting everything that happens in our lives anyway. I was just wondering, does it make it easier if you can visualize that clearly? Does it make it easier to maintain...
to consciously manifest.
Well, to maintain that feeling state, because we were talking about, I was petting my cat and, basically reliving and milking that. If you can visualize clearly, to me, that sounds to me like you can also maintain the scene, so to speak, and maintain the feeling of the scene more easily. That's what I was thinking.
That's an interesting thought. I don't know. We'll have to think more about that.
Yeah.
I was just kind of reviewing, even in my mind this morning, kind of the steps again of manifesting.
Yeah.
And was kind of looking back on some things I've manifested in my own life, and if it actually followed those steps or not. So, I thought it would just be kind of cool to review those steps today a little bit, and then maybe bring up some examples that went with those steps.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Hey, before we get started on that, though, I want to get our messages in, because we always have to get our promo messages in. The first one being, if you're not yet a subscriber, please become a subscriber, because it's really easy to do. Most people know how to do this these days, but for those of you who might be a little tech challenged, we have the instructions on how to do it on the homepage of our website at loatoday.net, and it really does pay to subscribe. We're doing 11 shows a week. And so that's 11 hours of daily dose of happy that you're getting, that you can play anytime that it's good for you to play them. And we even have people who play show after show after show. They binge listen to them, which is really fun. But it really does pay to get it, because these days, especially with what's in the major media and so forth, there's so many reasons to feel bad about stuff. To have a show to feel good about is a really, really good antidote. So we really do urge you, please become a subscriber. And also, for our existing subscribers as well as our new subscribers, please post stuff on your favorite social media channels about where you're listening and what you're listening to, that you're listening to loatoday.net. Because in the 3 months or so that we've been doing that promo, we've seen a major increase in listenership, and we want to keep that growing. We want to get it up to the point where we're well into the hundreds now. We want to get into the thousands and then tens of thousands per episode, per episode. My dream is to get to the point where we are helping tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people to feel better every day and get to that better feeling place, knowing perfectly well that when people do that, they're going to be manifesting like crazy what they really want in their lives, rather than the stuff that we don't want. Because that's what we're good at, right? We're good at manifesting the stuff we don't like. What we want is to manifest the stuff we do like.
And, the cool thing is it's free. You
That's
can
right.
listen to it anytime. I like to listen to it when I'm driving on my way to work.
Oh, cool.
It just kind of lifts me up a little bit.
Oh, very good. Yeah, well, that's what it's supposed to do. That's what it's supposed to do.
And I really like the idea of having people call in and ask questions. That, to me, when we get to do the coaching piece, is really a lot of fun.
Yeah. In fact, it was fun today, because when we started the show, we actually have two of our listeners logged into the Zoom platform. One of them indicated he's just here to listen. I'm not sure about the other one, but either of you guys, if you decide you want to come onto the program, just type something into the chat window, and we'll notice it, and I'll be able to bring you in. But yeah, we love having people call in, and especially when they decide to talk with us, because, oh boy, that third perspective could be really, really fun. As you and I found out when we had Julie Ryan on a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool.
It was really good. So take us through the manifestation steps. Let's go back to the basics for a moment.
So, and this is all Abraham-Hicks, which, of course, go onto YouTube and Google Abraham-Hicks with any topic and get amazing audios that you can listen to.
Right.
But a lot of times what I find is that even when listening to those audios, it can be confusing to people, especially if they're new to it or they don't know the lingo. It's kind of like there's its own, that's part of it, vortex and manifesting and vibration and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you almost need a glossary just to keep up. You need a scorecard to know the players, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So actually, that's one of the things. I've got a meetup that I do once a month. I just did it on Saturday morning here in Encinitas and in California. And that's one of the things we focus a lot on, is interpreting those audios and how to actually use them in a practical way in your life. So anyhow, so the first step, I'm going to just sort of do a little tutorial, I guess. So the first step, as we know, is really asking for what you want. So the way that we ask is really anytime we have anything happen in our life that we don't like, that's contrast. And when we have that contrast, it automatically shoots off what is called a rocket of desire into the universe about what we do want. Because we're not happy with what we do want, with what we don't want. So what we do want is just already set off into motion. It also helps to be really clear on what I want. That helps to manifest things as well. So one of the things that I do is a lot of times people will say, well, I know what I don't want, but I don't know what I do want. So how do I figure that out? And one exercise I've used in my coaching is to have people write on the left-hand side of a page all the things that they don't want. And then on the right-hand side of the page, flip each one of those items that they don't want into something that they do want. If they don't know the specifics of what they do want, they just need to put the feelings that they want. And then rip that page in half, burn or toss that other left-hand side page of the page, and focus really on those things that you do want and really get into the feelings. So, that can include, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just going to say that the feelings are what amplify it.
Right.
When you just have the thought, also there's what Abraham talks about where it's the duration for how much time you're putting into thinking or feeling about it. But primarily, if you just put a thought out there and you don't have any feeling behind it, it's not like it doesn't attract anything. It does. It's just pretty weak.
It
unless
doesn't
you
have
have,
that power.
yeah, so unless you have zero resistance going on, and that's another concept that comes into this, the concept of resistance. But unless you have zero resistance, you're probably not going to see a manifestation out of it, just because it's just so weak at that point. Whereas, if you have a lot of passion that goes along with it, a lot of really strong emotional feeling that goes with it, and it's a feeling that is in alignment with it, that it's consistent with the thought, then you're going to push it along a lot faster just by having that passion behind it.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think there's more than one way to approach it, because sometimes if there is something we're really passionate about and we put those things down that we really want, getting into those feelings, like you said earlier, milking those feelings, like actually putting yourself in that position as if it's already happened and it's in present tense now. Like, I'm so excited now that my life is blah, 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 the way that I wanted it to be.
Right.
That's one way. The other way that I found is even if you, it's something that you're not necessarily, is not like a huge issue for you. You know how they talk about how you can manifest a castle as easily as you can a button.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter the size of it or how huge it is to you.
Or more precisely, it doesn't matter to the universal energy. It does matter to us, and that's where we get tripped up. But it doesn't matter to the universal energy.
Exactly. And I think that when we focus on something that we want, but it's just kind of light and we don't have a lot of resistance around it, it can manifest more easily. It just like flows into our experience because we aren't doubting it and resisting it. So one example I was thinking about with this was a few years ago, I was living on my own post-divorce and was kind of getting a little like, my kids had moved out and all that. And I was kind of like, it would be even though I've got a lot of great friends, it would be really nice to have somebody just hanging around the house. And it'd be fun to get a roommate and make a little extra money.
Sure.
So I kind of got clear on what those parameters were of what I was looking for. And, so step 2 is not our work. It's when the universe just happens vibrationally. So I know that's kind of a crazy concept for people who are just new.
Well, because it is a crazy concept. Let's be perfectly honest.
It is, you're right. It is kind of a crazy concept, but it's like crazy how effective it is. It really
that
is.
too. That's just it. In fact, there's also another factor here, and it's a factor people often hesitate to bring in, but I've really learned the importance of bringing it in. Everything that we have in our lives, we attracted in some way. Doesn't mean that we didn't also play an active role in doing stuff to bring stuff in, but we attracted everything. And that means we attracted everything that we like and everything we don't like too, which is why we were talking earlier about, focusing and maintaining our energy and milking the stuff that we love. The purpose of doing that was to make sure we're focusing just on the stuff we want and taking our minds off the stuff we don't want, so we don't manifest more of that stuff. Because that's the law of attraction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't say, well, I'm only going to give Walt exactly what he wanted that he really, really wanted. I'm not going to give him the stuff that he didn't want. No. It's not, it doesn't work that way. It's like the law of gravity. It doesn't matter whether you drop a baby or a baseball. Either way, it's going to fall. It's just that simple. So
exactly. So like the universe doesn't hear no.
That's right.
All it hears, all it perceives is something that we're putting our energy and focus towards.
That's right.
So anything our thoughts and energy goes and feelings go towards is what we're going to attract, whether it's good or bad or whether we want it or don't want it. It doesn't matter. So, a lot of times you're like, when you're first learning about this, you're like, I wouldn't have wanted this. Why would I ever have attracted this?
Right.
There's no way in hell that I wanted this thing. And it could be because it was a fear or it was a thought or it was a worry or doubt that created those thoughts, maybe ruminating in the middle of the night or whatever, that we're putting that energy out, and that's what brings into our experience. So I love when Esther says, that she'd say, if something really good happened, she goes, I did that. And if something really bad happened, she's like, I did that too, because we basically create everything.
Yeah. I usually say something like, oh God, I can't get away with anything.
It's true. It's like, no, stop that thought. Stop that thought.
Right.
Exactly. So what's so cool about it is the step 2 is that the universe just makes it happen. And it's already, okay, here's where the vortex piece comes in, that vibrational escrow piece that I think can be confusing sometimes. So we've put that desire out. It happens automatically vibrationally. It's already there. It's in that thing called a vortex, which is this sort of holding place of vibrational escrow where all the things that you've ever wanted is all in there. But it's a matter of how we get it into our experience. So in the example I was giving with the roommate is I just kind of got excited about it. I thought, well, that would be kind of cool. I would love to have a roommate to try it out in maybe 6 months or something. And I would love it if it would just kind of fall into my lap and I really don't want to have to do anything for it. It wasn't even like I was that dead set on it. I was just like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. So it was sort of this lighthearted, non-resistant thought.
Right. Non-resistant being the key words.
Exactly. I wasn't worried about it or anything. So, then the step 3 is again, that's really the work. The step 1 happens automatically. We have contrast every day. We have desires every day. The step 2 happens automatically because the universe does that part, makes it happen vibrationally. And then the step 3 is the piece that really is our work, which is, or play, if we should approach it in another way, is to allow those desires that are in our vortex into our life experience.
Which sounds so strange. Why would you have to allow it?
I know it does. But, one of the biggest things I think hooks people up is when they doubt it or they don't believe it. Mm-hmm. Either they're not deserving of it or they're like, gosh, they have a scarcity mentality and they think, oh, there's not, like if I had gone into that place in this circumstance, I would have been like, oh, how am I going to really find a roommate that quickly? And how's it just going to happen? And there's probably a lot of people out there already who have places, and how am I going to make that all happen? So if I'd gone there.
You basically talked yourself out of a roommate at that point.
Right. But in this particular case, I didn't have any resistance or doubt or worry. And it wasn't super important to me. I was just like kind of lighthearted about it. It felt kind of hopeful and light. And I was lined up with it emotionally. I thought, oh, that'd be kind of fun. And it was so crazy I didn't even talk to anyone about it. I didn't even put an ad out anywhere. I literally did nothing. And I got an email the next week from a friend of mine saying that a friend of hers had a third cousin in Chicago who wanted to move to North San Diego County and go to the Gemological Institute, which is in Carlsbad, for a 6-month program and was looking for a place to live.
Now, there's two things I want to point out about that. First, how relatively quick it is because it happened within a week, apparently. And secondly, this is the part we kind of tend to overlook, I think. It took a week to get there. I mean, in theory, there should be, if there's no resistance at all, it should all show up pretty close to instantly. But it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is because of varying degrees of resistance that we have to it. So, I'm not trying to be critical or anything. I'm just simply saying somewhere inside of you and during your response, there was like maybe some degree of, reserve, maybe not quite totally on board with it. You liked the idea a lot, but, you hadn't given a lot of thought to it. Just enough to slow it down.
It had to be very little resistance, in my opinion, for it even to happen in a week. But you're right, because it could have instantly manifested.
Right.
But even that's pretty damn quick.
I mean, the resistance might be as simple as this. Maybe the resistance was, well, they just couldn't possibly show up faster than a week. And that would be resistance. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, I was really lined up with it emotionally and vibrationally, which allowed it just to come into my experience. Mm-hmm. And when she moved in, she came out to visit and with her mom. And her mom, weirdly enough, I work with hospice. Her mom, weirdly enough, was the director of a hospice agency.
Oh, yeah.
So it was just all these interesting things lining up. And it's one of those things where it just flowed so easily and naturally. We liked each other immediately. She moved in and she ended up ultimately, this was going to be just 6 months. She ended up staying 2.5 years.
Wow.
And we never had a conflict the entire time.
Very nice.
How often does that happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just crazy. So, the next step, these step 4 and 5, Abraham has added over time. Mm-hmm. So that was step 3. So step 4 is just getting really good at it and doing it on a more consistent basis.
Or in popular lingo, wash, rinse, and repeat.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and the funny thing is sometimes, I've had situations where I'm in that step 4 place and I'm getting how that happens, and I can see how I'm feeling most of the time really strong. And I find it just continually frustrating when I am not in that place.
Well, exactly. That's when we are frustrated. That's where
Don't you try
frustration
something?
happens. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, that's going to make me have resistance to everything that I'm putting out there. So,
Yeah.
And then the latest one with the step 5 is sort of like the mastery level of it, in my opinion, where we realize that this contrast in our life, so all the little annoying things that happen in our lives that we don't like, are really okay, and they're normal. And what they're doing is they're just providing contrast so that we can set off more rockets of desire and expand and grow. So that piece, I think, is really the piece that every now and then I find myself in that place where I've got the resistance and I understand and something's happening. And I'm like, I kind of can get why that's happening. It makes perfect sense. But at the time, sometimes it's like, oh, do I have to go through this again?
Yeah,
So I don't know.
it's true, because when we're in that step 5 place, that step 5 place is basically reinserting ourselves into what they call the contrast. And contrast is just a fancy word that means the stuff that includes the stuff we don't like.
Exactly.
So we're basically saying, okay, I volunteer to go back into the contrast again. Oh, not again. Oh, no.
So it's funny that you had mentioned the idea of it being a week. And if I'd been really into it, it could have happened. I mean, if I'd had no resistance at all, it would have happened instantly.
Yep.
So I have this funny example, kind of a cool example. And I don't know if I've mentioned this to you or not before. I might have, but it's how I met Jerry and Esther Hicks.
Oh, right. Yes. You told me that story. I don't know if you told me on the podcast, but it's a great story. So tell it anyway.
So, well, I think I will.
Well, all right then.
This was maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. I was doing, maybe 8 years ago, somewhere around there. I was doing life coaching and running groups, and a lot of the groups and the coaching that I was doing, I was kind of I had just recently gotten into fully using law of attraction in my daily life. I was sort of at the beginning process of that. And I had never actually even gone on to their website. I really didn't even think of going on a website for some reason. I just had gotten the book, and I'd gotten that huge packet of CDs, Law of Attraction, and was just listening to them over and over and over again. I don't even know. I think Through the Secret is how I found out about them. That first one that they got cut off of that.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of all I knew. But I was like so hungry for it. I could not get enough information. You know, that place where you're just like, oh my God, this so fits for me. Mm-hmm. And how do I figure out how to do this?
Well, I think that's how most people end up with this thing, because it's like the old classic, I can't remember if it's Buddhist or what, Confucian, the concept that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Mm-hmm. Well, the same thing is also true for knowledge. When the person is ready, the knowledge will appear. And that's exactly what Esther and Jerry talk about. Jerry actually wrote about it when he was writing the introductions to the books and so forth, how exactly that. This information is presented for those who are ready to receive it. That was a phrase he used over and over again.
Yeah. And it's interesting how there's levels of that, because sometimes you can listen to a podcast, or you can an audio, or you can go to one of their workshops and listen and hear one thing, or even a CD. Mm-hmm. And then you listen like 6 months later and you get completely different stuff out of it.
Isn't that wacky? I mean,
it is.
You get the same thing with their books too. I remember the first book I read of theirs, which was also the first one they put out, was Asking It Is Given. And I read it the first time, and I felt like they just kept saying the same thing over and over again. I didn't feel like I was getting anything out of it. Page 440 was no different from 2020, which was no different from 1010. That's the way it felt. And then I put it away and checked it out, I don't know, a year later or 6 months later or something like that. And it was all telling me new stuff, which really meant what was really happening is that I was paying more attention. I was more interested in going in depth, and so I was seeing more depth. And that's the fascinating thing about Abraham material, because the depth just is almost endless. You can read the same thing, you can hear the same thing over and over again and get something different every single time.
It's really true. It's funny, at the meetup last Saturday, I had one of the group members afterwards come up to me and was talking to me about it. And she said, well, it's really pretty simple. It's just like this. It's just like, be happy.
Yeah, well, Abraham says the same thing. We're going to answer all of your questions, they say at the beginning of a workshop. We'll answer all of your questions. We just want you to know in advance it's always the same answer.
It's true. It's true. But it's amazing how many, when you get into it and you're actually using these concepts and tools in your life, it's layers and layers and layers of stuff. It's simple. But it's simple, but it's not always easy to do.
Not at all. And I think that reflects the fact that we human beings are complex creatures who make things complicated.
Yeah.
And we do that because we have so many different perspectives. Even individually ourselves, we change perspectives. You know, one moment to the next, 1 week to the next, we may have a different perspective on what's going on in our lives. And that perspective changes the way we see it. So one day the simple concept may seem simple. The next day it seems complex because we just found a new perspective that doesn't look the same. And like, how did I get there the first time?
Exactly. It's true. And so, well, anyways, I was in the middle of that story, so I'll tell you the rest of my little manifestation.
Yeah, sorry.
So that's okay. I had been using law of attraction in my work and using it in my life. Didn't know all the details, but for some reason I just felt so strongly that I really wanted to meet Jerry and Esther. Mm-hmm. I just had this thing. I don't know what it was. I just really wanted to do it. So, I didn't even know about the workshops or when they were. I didn't know they traveled. I knew none of that. I just knew that they, had a home in Del Mar, which is like 10 minutes from my house. I didn't know exactly where. But somewhere through the rumor mill, I had heard that they went to this particular restaurant sometimes. And I thought, all right, so I planned to meet a girlfriend there. And for some reason, I had no doubt about this. It was the weirdest thing. I just absolutely knew that I was going to go in that restaurant and they were going to be there and I was going to be there. And I walked into that restaurant and they were there.
Fantastic.
It was like magic. It was just bizarre. And it was so fun. I mean, they were just the sweetest couple. I mean, Jerry's not with us anymore, at least not physically, but, it was just so cool to meet them. They were real sweethearts. And, I mean, seriously, if I had done what I wanted, I would have pulled up a chair and just spent the rest of the night with them. But I wanted to give them their privacy.
Right.
So, Jerry turned to me and said, this was, I guess, when Into the Vortex had just, come out.
Oh, okay.
That book. And so he turned to me and said, have you gotten that book yet? And I said, no, I've heard about it. He said, I knew there was a reason why I brought that book. I've got one in the car and I'll bring it into you. I was like, okay. And then Esther turned to me and said, our workshop in San Diego is this Saturday.
Of course it was.
And I'm like, I know. And I'm like, I didn't even know you had workshops. Like, let's talk about it. I was like completely oblivious. And so she said, you can email Barbara. I'll give you her email address and tell her that you're going to get a free ticket and that you can get in. I was like, that's great. And I left, I really didn't want to walk away from that table, but I was like, I don't want to bother you too much. So I left the table and went and sat with my friend. And a little while later, Jerry came back and, handed me the book that he went out to the car to get.
Wow.
And he signed it for me. It's one of my, prized possessions.
Yeah.
And, then he turned to my friend and said, I'm really sorry I don't have a book for you, but why don't you also come to the workshop with Patty when she comes on the Saturday? She's like, great. So, we went on talking and stuff where I was like so excited. I was jumping out of my chair. And she, about a half hour later, Jerry came back and he'd gone home and gotten a book for her.
Oh.
It's like, that's the sweetest thing I want.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
how great.
It was just to me an example looking back on something that I manifested it instantly. I thought about it. I went to the restaurant. There they were.
That's
because
really cool.
I really didn't have any resistance about it.
And
for whatever reason.
Well, speaking of resistance, now I live in Connecticut, so that would immediately create a huge amount of resistance in my mind because I would figure there's no way I can meet them because I know meet Esther now because I know Esther lives in California. So instantly I have eliminated any possibility of having that same kind of run-in as you had because, she wouldn't be in Connecticut.
Well, she might be for a workshop.
Oh, she could be, yeah. But my point is my mind is saying, well, no, the odds against her being
You're
here are
already
ridiculous.
putting up blocks and resistance.
I've already put up resistance, right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. Do you have any interesting manifesting stories that have happened to you?
Oh, God, thousands of them.
I'm sure you must.
Day to day. They happen all the time.
Yeah.
For me, we did that book. We did a book that came out in May that was a collection of manifestation stories and some really good ones called Your Daily Dose of Happy, Real Success Stories of the Law of Attraction, available on Amazon.
And I have a chapter in the book. Thank
you
you,
do.
Walt.
You have a great chapter in the book. I love your story. I mean, talk about another meeting the stars kind of thing.
Crazy manifestation. Yeah. Absolutely.
That was good. But no, for me, it isn't so much having these great manifestation stories, although they are a lot of fun. To me, it's more about the day-to-day, appreciating what happens day-to-day and getting frustrated with what happens day-to-day. And really, for me, it's almost like day-to-day, can I get myself into the good place, the happy feeling place, so that I can be the true deliberate creator I want to be and have my day play out the way I want it to play out. That's where the rubber meets the road for me. So I would have to honestly say most of my stories are negative stories that didn't work out properly, because I'm still learning how to be more consistent with the whole thing. Probably my best story really isn't a story at all. It's more of a description of a trend, because when I first tried to start doing this stuff, my batting average was horrible. I just couldn't get it right ever. Now I can get it right a lot more frequently. How frequently? Well, it depends on how I'm feeling any given day, but let's just say maybe 2 to 3 times as frequently as I used to be able to. And that is, for me, is huge. Now, is that an interesting story? No, actually, it's not. It's a very boring story to hear. But when you're living it, that is the interesting story, because that's what happens. And this is as true for followers of Abraham as for anybody else who's out there who's offering similar kinds of material. There is a tendency. You go to a workshop, you listen to a seminar, you listen to a presentation, an audio book, you read a book, whatever. And you get excited and you get really thrilled about what you're hearing. Like, oh, this is great. This is what I've been looking for all my life. It just resonates with me. And you try it and something works and you feel great about it. And then comes tomorrow. And now you have to do it again. And somehow you're not getting the same results. And then the next day comes and now you're not getting anywhere near the same results. And then the next day comes and now you're not getting close to the same results. And you're saying, what am I doing wrong?
What do you attribute that to?
I attribute it to not having taken total control of my focus, of what I'm giving my attention to. We have completely grown up in this culture and in all cultures around the world, giving into the idea that what happens to us is what we have to focus on, and what the results are that come out of this happen to us, that we really don't have a whole lot of control over. So being presented later on at some point in our lives with the idea that our thoughts brought all that stuff into our lives flies completely in the face of what we've been taught, and basically throws up a big challenge actually in our faces that say, so by the way, you've been manifesting all that stuff that you said you didn't want, but you've been manifesting it all along because you've been acting like a guy holding a gun who's just firing in random directions. It doesn't work. You don't get the results. Oh, you mean I have to be aiming carefully every time? Oh my God, I don't know if I can handle that. Well, how do I do that? Well, you focus on getting yourself into a good feeling place. So I have to think positive thoughts all the time. Oh, great. Yeah, I get about 50,000 negative thoughts a day. I'm supposed to blank those out. And that's what happens. We kind of get into this spiral where we just lose control of the darn situation.
Well, that, and also we're told that really the way that you get the things that you want is through hard work.
Oh, well, that's the other killer. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm here as living proof to tell you, after having tried the hard work approach for some 30 to 35 years, it doesn't work, folks. It's not the way to go.
Well, and the thing is, I love the example they give of the vacuum cleaner. How, there's somebody vacuuming the floor, and if it's not plugged in, you're just moving it back and forth. You're doing a lot of hard work, but you're not really getting anywhere. Versus, if you have that vacuum cleaner plugged in, you've got all that energy and power that's sucking all that dirt up and doing all the work for you. It's much, much easier to make it happen. You've got all that power behind you. And I see that analogy with the universe, which is if we're not plugged in or lined up in a high vibration with our inner being, or in the vortex, however you want to say it, if we're not in that high vibration or good feeling place, we're basically doing everything that we're doing from our own human energy.
And you'll find all 5 of those concepts in your glossary. So please turn to page 3 in your glossary, and you'll find vortex, alignment, energies. You'll find all that stuff explained right there.
And exactly. And if we instead do get to that point where we are lined up and in the zone, in the vortex, high flying vibration, whatever you want to call it, basically happy or in a good mood, we have all that energy of the universe behind us, all that power. So it takes, just like with the roommate example that I gave, it took basically no effort on my part because I was lined up about it to just have that roommate just come right into my life experience. Mm-hmm. Versus, there's been other times in the past where I've looked for roommates and you put out ads and you do all kinds of work around it. And all the people that are calling you are the wrong people or whatever. And it's because when you start the process of something that you want, if you're just not in that good place, you're going to attract the not good stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me
and you won't have all that power.
That's right. It reminds me of a Facebook post that I saw. It was in one of the Law of Attraction groups on Facebook. And a young woman had posted that she had been trying very hard to attract back one particular ex who she thought was perfect for her. And by the way, as an aside, before I tell the story, I'll tell our audience, don't do that. Just don't do that to yourself. If you want to attract the ideal person into your life, frame out what that person is like. Don't say it has to be that particular person. You're just setting yourself up for all kinds of frustrations. Just don't go there.
And even just focusing on the feelings that you want if you don't know the specifics.
Exactly. Yeah. Make it as general as possible. Let the universe deliver the right person. It's a much better way to go. But anyway, she wanted to attract this one person back, and there were actually 2 exes in her life. And so she put out there that, she wanted to attract this person back and how lovely her life would be and so forth. And she did that, I guess, about 3 months ago. And then on the day that she posted it, she was so frustrated because the other ex, who paid no attention to her, didn't love her, just treated her like crap, was the one who contacted her back. And she said, well, why did that happen? Why did the wrong ex contact me? And other people were, if you've ever seen, everybody tries to play coach in that situation, right? So, you got yourself, get yourself in the right vibration, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And so I'm sitting there watching all the posts, and lots of people were commenting and responding. And I said, basically, I took a different approach. I said, so what was it that you asked for? Which kind of threw her for a loop. And so she kind of reiterated again what she said. And I said, no, actually, what she said is she described the methods, the approaches, the modalities, how she did it. She did some affirmations and she did some mirror work, all that kind of stuff. She described all the steps, the modalities that she used. And I said, no. Describe to me the person you were trying to attract. And so she said, well, I was trying to attract him, and she again went into the house and what the sequence of events was. And I said, no. Tell me about the person you're trying to attract. What's he like? What are his characteristics? And she finally got it, that's what I was trying to ask her. And she asked me to take it offline. So we went to private messaging. And in the private messaging, I won't give her details away because obviously that's her private stuff. But she described to me who this person was and what the person was like. And then I said, now, how is that person different from the person who you manifested, the ex back that you didn't want? And basically, you can see I was trying to get her to zoom in on what she was thinking and feeling about. And so she described to me how this person just, he ignored her, he treated her badly, he didn't love her, he just wanted to use her for her body, all this kind of stuff. And so I said, well, you said it was 3 months ago that you spent, I guess, about 5 minutes trying to manifest this one guy back. What have you been thinking about since then? I mean, how often have you focused on, the fact that people don't love you, or they aren't treating you right, or they aren't, they're taking advantage of you, they just love you for your body, all that kind of stuff? And she said, well, I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right, I've thought about that quite a lot. I said, okay, so what does that tell you? She says, I don't know. And it just really illustrates, how when we're in the midst of it, the simplest things just don't even occur to us because we're so wrapped up in our own little dramas.
It's really true. And that's how when Esther talks about not being able to you can't get there from there.
Exactly.
Because when you're in that place of just obsessing about the things that you don't want, it's hard to even see what you want.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
can go round and round and round with that. So,
And we did for a while. I mean, we finally got down to the root of it. The root of it was she just didn't love herself very much at all. She didn't think much of herself in any way. So I recommended that she do some things to build up her own self-love, and that's the last I've heard of her. I'm hoping she'll get back to me and tell me how it worked out. But yeah, and it always comes down to, it seems like it should be about the thing we're asking for, right? I mean, that's usually the way we tend to look at it.
It's also about, do we feel that we deserve it? Do we feel that do we doubt it? Are we scattered in our thoughts? Are we going in all different directions? Do we have negative emotions that creep in?
And that's where the resistance comes in. That is precise. Yep. And that was the hardest one for me, because I didn't hear about resistance when I first heard about the 3-step method. Well, first of all, the 3-step method I heard was the way it's presented in The Secret, Ask, Believe, Receive. And that's a little bit different from the way Abraham presents it. But secondly, nobody talked about resistance. And stuff wasn't showing up. Sometimes stuff would show up. Sometimes the wrong stuff would show up. Sometimes nothing would show up. And I'm thinking, well, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
Well, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just didn't know the whole concept yet.
Well, that's exactly the example we were talking about of what we were saying earlier, which is, even though it's simple, it's like, get happy, bring in what you want. Mm-hmm. It's not always easy, because we can get stuck in all the resistance.
Exactly.
And the doubting.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. A lot of it, that self-acceptance piece and that self-love piece, is huge.
It's gigantic.
Because if we're not loving ourselves and accepting ourselves for who we are, then we're disagreeing with our inner being.
Talk about that, because that's a really cool concept. That's another Abraham concept, but explain that.
Mm-hmm. So the way that I view this is that, our inner being, so here we are, this person on earth, with this body and this brain and these feelings and these thoughts. And the way that Abraham describes it is like, we're one little piece of this huge inner being. I don't know if it's huge physically, but maybe energetically. And that inner being part of us, or the higher self, or whatever you want to call it, some people call it God, whatever it is, that bigger part of ourselves is non-physical and is all-knowing, and is 100% pure positive energy, and only sees us as perfect exactly the way we are. Loves everything about us just the way we are. Which
is a critically important point, because what that means is loves us just the way we are, flaws and all. All the things that we see of as flaws, it doesn't see that way.
It's like, basically, it's all good.
Yep.
No matter what. And so if we're disagreeing with that, if a part of us, this little person, I almost feel like it, here's the little brain and there's the big brain. This physical part of us. If we're not believing that if we're not loving ourselves and we're not accepting ourselves for who we are, and we're criticizing ourselves or doubting ourselves or feeling like we don't deserve something or not liking about ourselves in any way, what that's doing is that's creating contrast and that's creating resistance, and what that causes is a bad feeling, because our inner being will never go there to agree with us. It will never go there. And the thing that the whole vibrational system, the way that whatever our emotions are, the emotions that we're feeling, gives us our indication of whether we're in agreement with our inner being or not, whether we're lined up with our inner being or not. And when we're not, that's when things feel bad.
And it's always struck me as being kind of a weird thing, because I always think about it in terms of I'm in my physical position, so I think about it in terms of where I'm feeling. So if my inner being is disagreeing with me, it's like, well, what's wrong with you? I've got it right here. I'm the one who's understanding. I'm the one who just got attacked. What are you talking about?
Right. I got the proof. Right,
I have the proof. This is it. I have every reason to feel upset right now. So, who are you to tell me that, no, you disagree with this? Give me a break.
And the bottom line is, sometimes we're going to feel upset and sometimes we're going to feel yucky. And they talk about ways to deal with that, which has to do with finding ways to, one option is to raise your vibration if you can. But if you're kind of so far gone that you're already down the rabbit hole, is just to detach from your mind in any way that you can, such as taking a nap or meditating or doing the meditation walk like you like to do. Mm-hmm. Finding a way to quiet our mind from all that negative chatter.
Yeah. It's kind of like the adult version of a timeout.
Right. Exactly. So, one of the steps to change that would just kind of be, our work is to create a thought that just kind of hooks me up in the direction that I want to go. I don't have to build the whole highway. I don't have to see the house. I don't have to plan my whole life, or I don't have to build my whole dream. I just need to figure out how to get on that highway moving in the right direction and find those little baby step beginning pieces that feel good, such as, walking on the beach, or hearing nice music, or looking at clouds, or playing a fun sort of silly game, anything that's going to begin to raise our vibration and hook up with those positive thought waves.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's it. Yeah. And I think one of the ways that we know that we're on the right path is when things, when we let go and we're relaxed, and when things flow easily. So you know how you go through periods of time, we all do, when we're struggling. I mean, I might be on the way to work, and every person on the way is cutting me off. I'm hitting every red light. It's cloudy, it's raining, there's just all this negative. When I'm in a bad place, it's amazing how consistently I create that in my life experience.
Doesn't it drive you nuts? I mean, it just drives me frigging nuts. Like, come on, give me a break.
I know, it's really true. And, there's those other days where it's like you can't take a wrong step, and the cars just part like the Red Sea when you're driving, geez. And you find the parking space right in front, and you go to get in line somewhere and everybody moves out of line and you're first. I mean, it's just like freakish.
It is. It's insane how that happens. We were experiencing that when Louise and I drove back from North Carolina from our niece's wedding. We were coming up the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and as we had just gotten onto the bridge, and I don't know if you've ever been on that bridge. Do you? Okay, so you know that bridge.
It's so
you got two lanes either way, right? And there's two lanes, and for whatever reason, when we got on, it was jammed in that one little section. So there were like 5 cars on each one, right? And so I figured, okay, well, I guess we're just going to go with, whatever we got going here, and we'll just sit and be patient. And within about 2 minutes, all of a sudden, all the cars literally got out of our way, and we were in front.
Wow.
I mean, it was bizarre.
And when that happens, it's like so much fun. It's so exciting. It's like, wow, look at this. And I think that's a real great opportunity to milk it. So something like that happens, and it's a great opportunity for us to really appreciate and be like, oh, thank you, inner being. And I'm so excited that this happened, and really focus on those good things that are happening, on the positive aspects of everything that's happening.
Well, Louise and I would actually, when that happened in that particular case, and we do this often, is, well, I guess we're in the vortex now. Look at that. And we comment to each other about it, and talk about, oh my goodness, I guess the day's going good. Look at it. We got this gorgeous weather. This is going to be a great drive. And she was loving it because once we got past, how the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, you got a bridge and a tunnel, a bridge, a tunnel and a bridge, and then you're on the island, and then you're driving up on mainland after that. Well, she doesn't do well with any kind of heights, and that's not really high. It's like 20 feet off the water, something like that. But it just makes her uncomfortable. So when we got past all that, and we're onto the land again, it's not like a super highway, right? It's like a highway in the middle of nowhere, and everything just kind of opens right up. And she was just loving that, so that was how we milked it. I mean, not only did everything clear out of the way and we got through without any kind of a hitch, but when we got on the other side, I mean, she was just commenting left and right. Oh, it's not like riding on a super highway. I mean, there are interesting things to look at, and they're not just trees, there are buildings, and we're driving past little shops and so forth, all kinds of interesting stuff to look at. She was really into it. And as a result, the rest of the trip went swimmingly.
Yep. And getting into that appreciation piece.
Yeah, very important.
Huge, because those positive thoughts and feelings, they talk about the 17-second mark and the 68-second mark. So the 17-second mark is when you start to you just begin to gain some momentum,
right,
and draw thoughts that are like it to the ones that you're having. And then the 68-second one, you've really got that momentum going.
Yeah, something's going to start to manifest in physical form at that point. Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty cool stuff. By the way, something else happened with that Chesapeake Bay Bridge trip. The very next day, my sister texted me, there was a massive accident that blocked the entire bridge. People were stuck on it for 12 hours at a time.
After you?
One day afterward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the universe worked that one out for you.
Yeah, we left at the right time. No doubt about it.
And what's so cool too is that the universe really does kind of guide you moment by moment, really incrementally. Well, it doesn't have to be huge leaps. It can just be little step by step.
Where did we have that? Oh, we went to, on Sunday. That's right. We went to a local apple and fruit farm nearby. This time of year, they get all kinds of activity at this farm, and it's a very, very popular one in the area that they're in. So they just have people coming from miles around. Well, anyway, we drove down. We used Google GPS to guide us down there, and it kind of at the end it took us kind of a little weird route, and we weren't sure why, but we followed it, and we realized that the reason for it was that there was some sort of an accident on the highway portion where we would have come off. It basically got us off before that, which was really cool. And one of the reasons I like Google GPS so much. Well, the same thing happened on the way home, and we got to where we would normally have turned, and Louise says, well, you got to turn there. I said, well, I don't know. Google GPS is saying go this way. And she says, well, it's okay. It's not like we have to rush to get home. So, yeah, let's just enjoy a little ride, see where it takes us. And because of that attitude, we took that. Well, good thing we did, because that little accident that I talked about had turned into a gigantic traffic jam. And it took us this long, circuitous route to go all the way around it, get back onto the highway. We never came to a stop anywhere, and we were home in no time flat. But if we had followed oh no, I got to get home quickly, or any other kind of, I got to do it rather than feel it situation, we would have ended up in that traffic jam.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love when stuff like that happens.
I do too. Sometimes it's a little confusing when it happens. I mean, you have to go with it. That's the hard part, right? You have to go with whatever the reaction is. Like, oh, geez, I don't know where this is taking us, but we'll just relax into it.
And what you did is you listen, rather than listening to your brain, you listen to your heart.
Yeah, well, we listen to feeling good about it.
To Google Maps.
And to that too. Yeah, well, Google Maps helps because Google's really good at tracking that kind of stuff. So it was both, but we had to feel good about it. Because if we hadn't felt good about it, we probably would have tried to overrule it.
Yes. Yep. So you were in the right place.
And really the right emotional place. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, it also helped that we were out for, having fun for the day. So that helps keep you in a good place. Like kind of like doing a podcast. Doing a podcast. I mean, right now, I don't know about you. I'm feeling really, really good. I'm feeling a lot better than when we started just because we're doing this,
Yep. Just talking about this stuff raises my vibration.
Do you get the feeling I get when I'm feeling in that really good place? I feel like there's a glow running from my stomach up through my chest and into my face. Do you get that?
What I get is buzzy.
Buzzy?
My whole body feels like I have bumblebees inside it.
Bumblebees? Oh, that would not feel comfortable to me.
But not stinging bumblebees, just buzzy, like buzzing, like my body's buzzing. I don't even know how to explain it. You know how kind of when you, this isn't really exactly like it, but when your hand's asleep and you lift it off and then those tingles come into your hand.
Yeah.
You feel that blood going in. Mm-hmm. Not the part where it's uncomfortable, but the part where it feels good. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the thing I get. I sort of get from my toes all the way up to my neck.
Wow.
Even my head. I get buzzy.
Buzzy.
It's funny.
Well, there's the new technical term for the week. Buzzy.
That's how I know when I'm in my.
Have you gotten your daily dose of buzz today?
I'm literally vibrating.
Well, it's nice to know. I mean, apparently Abraham is correct then. There is a vibration going on, and it's real. It's physical.
Well, maybe that's what I'm feeling.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. I do know that I have a sensitivity to pooled energy on a person's body.
What kind of energy?
Pooled energy. Energy is kind of stuck in one particular place. And we found that out because Louise has had a history of migraine-type headaches. And we heard about this Reiki technique, and somebody stole a page out of a Reiki manual and shared it with us so that we could see what this particular thing was you're supposed to do. And it described this practice. And I mean, I'd never heard of it before, and I didn't know what to do, but I just read it, and I just kind of dumbly did what it said, and it worked. So ever since then, I've, whenever she's had a headache or an injury or something like that, I'll help to, move the energy away, and she's able to go to sleep. And when she wakes up, she feels better.
All right, I'm gonna text you next time I have a headache.
Yeah. But what I noticed is what they're having you do is sweep the energy away. Go find where the person is hurting, and if you hold your hand there, you can feel something, and when you feel it, that's what you sweep it away. And they show you how to sweep it away. They tell you how to do that. So that's what I do. Yeah. And I mean, when I first read it, I said, yeah, feel the energy. Okay, right. I didn't believe that for a second. Well, interesting thing, the first time that I tried, I was doing what it said. I tried to feel some energy, and I felt something at a particular point. And so I touched her head at that point. I said, is that where it hurts? And she says, yes. I said, wow. Cool. And she says, what? She's got a headache, and I'm telling her it's cool, right? But but it was really strange. I mean, I would hover my hand over that spot, and the meat of the hand just below the fingers, above the palm, that part right there is the most sensitive to body energy. So if I hold that part over a body and there's any kind of pooled energy there, I really feel it in a big, big way. I mean, it's almost like a magnetic field, and ants crawling on the skin and all that kind of thing. It's so powerful. But,
wow.
Yeah.
Hey, I just noticed the time.
Yeah, we're kind of out of time, but this has been really good, and I'm glad we did it. Before we go quickly, how does somebody reach out to you if they want a little personal coaching?
Well, one way is if you're local in San Diego County, I have a meetup called the North County Law of Attraction Meetup. So you could always go onto there and get some information. And to email me, it's patty@pattyframo.coaching.com, PATTYFRAMO.
All right, there we go. Patty, it's been great. I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Excellent. Me too. Thanks.
All right, and we'll see you all next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.